Hello everybody!
Hello everybody!
Shahzad and Nursery once again here today with the final and the third trimester pregnancy update video. Before we start, we want to give a massive thanks to those who had been watching our previous videos, giving us a lot of comments and blessings and questions as well. As you've seen in the previous videos that we have made, we usually have done a book dedication for each month of the pregnancy. Then we have also addressed some questions that we have received from you regarding various aspects of our pregnancy. We are going to do the same today. So today there would be a book dedication for month 9, and then we are going to address some questions that we could not answer in our last video and some new questions that we have received to go through in this video today. But before that, we have to go through the bump update.
So as you know, we are in the 36 weeks of our pregnancy as we speak now. Next week on Monday we will enter into 37 weeks, which is considered to be a full term of a pregnancy. So we are really excited about it, and I'm just gonna show you how my bump look at this stage at 36 weeks. This is how the bump looks. So yeah, I'm just getting bigger and bigger and heavier each day. But you know, before we start the main content of this video, we also want to share that if we are lucky and enter into the 10th month of the pregnancy, we will share or dedicate one more book for our unborn child, because you know, you don't know once you are full term, once you enter into 37th week of your pregnancy, you can go into labor anytime. So we are hoping that we reach to our due date. I don't even mind going past over our due dates, but let's just hope for the best and see how it turns out to be, you know, for us in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So yeah, let's just start with the book dedication, yeah?
Let's go. So let's look at the book dedication that we have for month 9 for our unborn child. And it's a book from none other than Stephen Hawking, and it's called The Brief Answers to the Big Questions. So this is the final book from Stephen Hawking before he passed away. And it's a beautiful little book by a brilliant mind, as you would always knew. And it addresses questions such as, is there a God? How did it all begin? So it's really a lot of food for thought. So we are just hoping that if our child gets to read this book, of course, when he or she will understand the value of this, it will be a tremendous, tremendous addition to his understanding of the world that we live in. So there you go. So again, Stephen Hawking's Brief Answers to the Big Question is our book dedication for month 9. And as Tanushree said, if we do get into month 10, there would be another book dedication for our unborn child, which we'll present to you perhaps in another video, who knows?
Maybe after the birth.
Maybe after the birth.
Yeah. So let's just start with the questions. Thank you very much for sending those questions. Some of them are really interesting, some of them are really personal, but I don't think there is anything personal when it comes to pregnancy. So it might be very personal for some people to even address those questions, but I believe that it might provide new knowledge and information to others. So let's just start it.
Let's go.
So the first question is, are you planning to breastfeed your baby? And I'm assuming this question is for me. So my answer to this question is yes, I do. I'm actually so passionate about breastfeeding that I plan to breastfeed my baby up until 6 months without introducing any formula or any other solid food. Of course, I mean, I'm not the first person going to advocate about breastfeeding and the benefit of it. I myself is a breastfed child. I've got 3 siblings. All of us were breastfed. My mother breastfed us up until 2 years, or even probably more in the case of, I mean, I don't remember how long I was breastfed for, but when it comes to my brother, who is 6 years younger than me, and I remember it clearly, I think it went over 2 years. Of course, the benefit of breastfeeding is tremendous. First thing that comes to my mind is that it gives you that great immune system, you know. I mean, I personally think, if I have to speak for myself, I've got great immune system. I would like to believe that because, you know, I don't fall sick very often. So that's why I think this is the least I can do for my baby. So other than that, there are of course whole lot of benefits of breastfeeding your child. Of course, it's challenging, it's difficult, it requires a lot of patience. Many women try and then they fail, but I don't see any reason for me to fail or not to produce milk or have enough supply for my baby. So of course I'll keep trying, and I'm actually very passionate and mentally preparing for it. I also went for a breastfeeding class conducted by our NHS, which is the National Health Service. There are fantastic things said by the midwife who conducted the session. I can actually make a full-fledged video about breastfeeding. So yeah, of course this is what I plan to do, and if you want, once the baby is here, I can do a full-fledged video and share how I'm coping with it, what are the things that one should keep in mind when they plan to breastfeed. So yeah, that's my answer. I know it's a long answer, but as I said, you can actually do a 30 minutes video on breastfeeding itself. Moving on to the next question. The second question is, are you going to have a nanny?
Well, I think that the short answer is, at this very moment, we don't know. What we know for sure is we are going to be on our own, at least for the first few weeks, perhaps even for the first few months.
In fact, we don't have a nanny at the moment. Like, we haven't
absolutely.
talked to anybody. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the short answer is no. And we really want to give it a try ourselves, depending on the way we live in these countries. We are on our own and everything is we have to do ourselves. We'll see how best we can take care of things ourselves, how best we can look after the child after birth. And if need be, there are options to hire nannies. It's easy, of course, it's expensive. You have to look for the background checks and securities, their credentials. If need be, we will explore the option to hire a nanny. But to start with, right after the birth, no. We will take care of our child ourselves.
Ourselves, yeah. And at the moment, we don't have anybody. We haven't even spoken to anyone. We were thinking of that option, but it didn't sound or seem to be very feasible at the moment for many reasons, finance being one of them.
Sure.
And also, I just thought, let the baby come and see how we get along.
Yeah.
And the thing is, of course, we know there will be, there are some questions that we'll be addressing later on about the post-birth ordeal and, sleep deprivation and all these things. But yes, keeping all those things in mind, we just want to be brave at the moment and see how we cope with the newborn, We just want to test ourselves. That's it. Okay, so moving on to the next question. What are the negative pregnancy symptoms you had or experienced in your pregnancy? So the thing is, it's up to you whether you want to see something negative or you see something positive. It's all about your perception and how you look at things. Of course, there are 10,000 things that you will go through in your journey of pregnancy which doesn't look very positive. Most of those symptoms and changes are actually, they're kind of side effects of pregnancy. They come with it. They come with this concept or this whole idea of pregnancy. For example, your body changes, right? There are hormonal changes. You won't be able to sleep the way you slept before, because as your pregnancy progresses, your body becomes heavier. You have to, I'm sure many of you know that you are required to lie down on your side, preferably on the left side. So you are not able to sleep on your back, or of course not on your belly either. So those are the, I don't know even whether I should say use the word compromise. Those are the things that you do automatically, because the thing is, it's not a conscious thing that you have to do. Your body will automatically tell you after 5 minutes, if you're lying down on your back, after 5 minutes your body will automatically tell you to turn on the left side, because that's how it is. I don't know how to explain that in a more elaborate way, but that's how it is. So it's difficult for someone to sleep on either of the side for a whole 6 to 8 hours at night. So these are the things that automatically there. I don't want to see it as a negative way, because if you will only see it in a negative way when you think that, oh, somebody has forced you into this pregnancy. Nobody have forced me to become pregnant. I did it myself, and I knew there will be certain side effects that I will have to go through for the next 9 to 10 months of my life, and I was mentally prepared for it. Of course, it's not always easy. There will be nights you only sleep for 3 hours, but you do survive, and I have survived, you see. And you carry on doing things. So I don't want to see it as a negative thing, but of course, yeah, if I have to pick one thing, that would be lying down on my left side for 6 to 8 hours at night has been very difficult, especially at this stage when probably the weight of my bump would be like 5 to 6 kgs there, because you're carrying so much weight here because you're at the last stage of this pregnancy. And of course there are 10,000 other things, like you are not that flexible anymore, and of course many other things. If your pregnancy is high risk and you have many complications, I'm sure your answer will be very different. For me, I haven't had, touch wood, so I just want to look at all the other things that comes with the journey of the pregnancy. I want to see it in a positive way, and I'm okay. I mean, if I didn't sleep so well for 6 to 8 hours at night in most of the nights, I'm just absolutely okay with it. So yeah, so I wouldn't say it's negative. There are many parts of pregnancy as well. For example, when I go shopping these days, I can jump off the queue and pay, before these 100 people who are standing in the queue for like half an hour, and that's not what I decide. That's the protocol. The staff, they come to me and they said, okay, you can come and jump off the queue and just pay and leave because you're pregnant. When I go to a restaurant, they always look at me and they give me the most comfortable seat with sofa and all. So there are many parts of being pregnant as well. So if I see those things as a very positive things and I feel pampered, why would I just moan about not sleeping so well at night, right? So yeah, that's how you perceive it. So moving on to the next question, how are you preparing yourself for paternity leave and roles?
Yeah, so I've already spoken to the HR department in my company, and the whole intention was to apply for the paternity leaves, because in the UK you do get 2 weeks of paid paternity leave. Now there's a big caveat when they say paid paternity leave. So paid basically means paid peanuts. It's a really basically you get 2 weeks of paid paternity leave in the UK, and the first week you get 90% of your salary, so not even full salary. And in the second week you get £143 per week. Which is I think it's not going to help. Let's put it this way.
Many people earn at least triple the amount of that amount, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best way, what we thought would be useful is that for the first week, I've just requested for a leave for my annual leave pool. And in the second week, I'll just work from home, which I tend to do from time to time anyway. That would be challenging, but we'll see. And assuming that all of this is going to happen in the month of March, and we'll just have to somehow manage in the next 2-3 weeks, then what I've done is applied for another leave for around 9 days around the Easter holiday period in the 3rd week of April and beginning of May. So there's a bit of a trick if you look at the calendar, that if you apply for 9 days of holidays, you actually get 2 weeks. So we are really hoping that from March up to that period, if we can manage on our own, and if I have that 2 weeks of holiday around end of April, early May, we should be just fine. So that's the plan for the maternity leaves. The summary is the statutory leave that we get for fathers from the UK government is just not adequate at all.
It's so discouraging, we should be providing more paternity leaves to engage more fathers, because we all complain about mothers are more engaged and invested when it comes to parenting, the fathers are not. But are our regulations, rules and society's way of thinking encouraging enough for the fathers? I don't think it is. So I think the rules and regulations are not in favor of the fathers, and that's why probably they are not invested. We just need to probably make more flexible rules for the fathers as well, because they have huge role to play, especially in the first few days or first few weeks, because of course the mother's role is different. If the mother is going to take care of the child when it comes to feeding the baby, it's the father's job to look after the mother and make sure the mother is fed well so the mother can feed the baby. So of course we all have roles to play here. The next part of that question was, how are you preparing for the new role?
Yeah, so again, even before the pregnancy, all along, we had very specific roles that we try to follow as a family. So for example, if Nursery is taking care of the cooking, I tend to take care of the dishwashing, etc., etc. And we have our dedicated boundaries that we have to take care of such things. So even we are hoping that just before the birth, during the birth, and even right after the birth, my job will be to make sure that I'm trying to support both the nursery and the baby as much as I can, making sure that we have enough supply for food and the usual stuff that we would be needing. And I think being around is of course important, but doing the little bits and pieces to help the mother as well during those moments is something that I personally will have to be very careful about. Also, very importantly, the equipments that we have bought so far, like any electronics items or the stroller, for example. So it's important that I try to go through those manuals now and not wait for the baby to be actually here and then I'm trying to fidget with the devices, how it works. So that's another role that I want to play now, just to make sure that the devices are all working correctly. The nappy disposal bins are working in great condition, and the stroller, how to dismantle it and put it back again, baby monitor, for example. So that's the kind of roles that I intend to do for myself.
And the next question is, how do you manage to cook so much when you are so pregnant? Isn't it hard? And I'm assuming this question is for me because I do cook and you see me all the time on Insta story or on Facebook. The thing is, I received these questions from many of you, especially after I shared the pictures and the blog post on our baby shower, the Bengali style baby shower we had, which we call Shahzad. It's very surprising. I don't know how to address this question because I never saw cooking a burden, or I never saw cooking as something so special. I had been living away from my parents when I was 17 for my higher education. I went to study in a hostel. I stayed in a hostel. I went to study in the university when I was 17. And since then and now, I had to look after what I'm eating myself. So I thought it's a basic life skill. When I was staying with my parents up until 16 and a half, 17 years, I never had to cook. My mother always encouraged us to go and study and finish our coursework. I never learned how to cook from anyone. When I look back, I just think that, okay, I actually didn't even take a 15 minutes cooking class or baking class from anyone in my entire lifetime. So it's quite, I don't know. All the food that I cook, I've learned it myself. And of course, there are certain kind of cuisine, like especially Bengali cuisine. It's highly influenced by my mother's cooking or my grandmother's cooking, but they're just influenced. I haven't sit down with them ever or learn which ingredient you put after which one. So, because I have always seen cooking as a basic life skill. I cook because I have to eat. So that's how I see it, and it's so interesting because the kind of cooking or kitchen setup we have here, it's so comfortable, it's so modern, that I don't see why it is such a big deal to stand there for half an hour, 1 hour or 2 hours in the kitchen. If you want to sit down, you can also sit down. I have a small table and dining table and for the breakfast setup that we have in the kitchen as well. If I want to take a rest, because when you are pregnant, more than half an hour you start feeling the back pain. So if I want, I could have sit down and just carry on cooking. So I didn't think it's a big deal. I think it's the most spontaneous thing I can do without thinking too much. I don't think too much about cooking. It's the most natural thing that comes to me. Of course, when somebody is a good cook, that's a skill. That's an art. But to know basic cooking, I think it should be a basic life skill for everybody, and everybody, regardless of the gender, should be able to cook the basic food that he or she needs to feed himself or herself. So it's not a big deal for me. It's the most natural thing. I'm surprised that many of you said it must be hard. Maybe cooking 10 items in a day may be hard, yeah, but then not every day I cook 10 items. But cooking basic things, 2-3 items in a day or for a meal, it's something very, very natural to me. So yeah, that's my answer actually. So moving on to the next question, what birth control did you use before pregnancy?
Yeah, so it's very simple. Of course, we knew that there were so many options to plan our family, and of course when to get pregnant, when to have children. It was of course our decision, but we just stuck to having basic usage of condoms.
Exactly.
I think it served quite a lot of good purposes. That firstly, of course, it's just less messy, let's put it this way, and it of course prohibits pregnancy. At the same time, you were clear of all kind of STDs, etc. And but yeah, I think it was less messy, no pregnancy, and no risk of any diseases. So we just stuck to just using
basic
condoms. Yeah.
And I mean, we never thought about it as a birth control measure.
Yeah.
We just thought it's the most normal thing to do when two people are having sex. Birth control comes as, you know, byproduct of using condom. And if I have to add something to this answer as a parent to be, if I have to give one tip to my child when it comes to sex education, if it's a girl, my advice would be don't sleep with a man who doesn't want to use condom. And my tip to a boy child would be always use a condom unless you want to be the father of the child. So I think that should be the approach, and that is how it should be. I hear people taking pills and go for other birth control options. It's your choice at the end of the day, true, but I can't even think of taking any pills to stop me from becoming pregnant, because those are chemicals that I'll be putting into my body and will mess up my hormones. Why would I do that? Never, never, ever. And maybe, I mean, I don't want to take unnecessary credit for this, but maybe this is also one of the reasons why I never had irregular period. See, I'm not in my 20s. I'm not so young. So still, I want to tell you that I never had any irregular or missed period. My periods have always been on time. Maybe that's also one of the reasons, you know, going back to the last video that we did, that some of you asked that what are the things that we did before becoming pregnant, you know, to prepare our body. Maybe that's one of the reasons it was so easy for me to conceive, because I had a regular cycle. I never messed with my hormones by, you know, taking those pills and this and that. So maybe that's one of the reasons, you know. I'm not going to give all the credit to that only, but maybe that's one of the reasons. So yeah, that's the answer to that birth control question. Moving on to the next question is how much weight you gained so far. I'm assuming this is for me. The funny thing is, you shouldn't be, you know, weighing yourself like so rigorously and put so much pressure on yourself when you are pregnant. You should enjoy this pregnancy. Having said that, it's also important how much weight you gain, because of course your doctors, midwives will tell you you have to gain a certain amount of weight in your pregnancy, the healthy weight gain that they call. I've shared a blog post on my blog, which I'll share the link below, in which I have talked about this in a very elaborate way. If you are in a healthy weight before your pregnancy, the ideal weight gain should be between 11 to 16 kgs. And thankfully, I'm still within that range. 36 weeks of this pregnancy, I've gained so far around 12 kgs. I'm still in the safe zone. And the good part is, on the day of the delivery, half of this weight will be reduced, because when the baby is out, the weight of the amniotic fluid and the baby weight, half of it will be gone on that day. And then the rest half, of course, with time, I will lose it. And of course, breastfeeding will help me also to go back to my previous shape as well. Knowing the person I am, who always tries to remain active, it will not be very difficult for me, just a matter of a few months. So I plan to hire a personal trainer a few weeks after postpartum. So let's see how it goes. And I don't see any reason for me to worry about the weight gain, because that just comes with this journey of pregnancy. And good thing that is that I'm within the range here, because it's so important. People will be giving you advice, oh, eat as much as you can. No, you shouldn't. So you should be within that range, you know. Otherwise, you'll put unnecessary danger to your baby even while being pregnant. You know, people of certain ethnic background, if you are overweight during your pregnancy, you might have diabetes, and that might put danger to your baby during labor, during birth. So why, you know, bring those unnecessary complications to your pregnancy when you can actually control it from the very beginning? So make sure you do gain weight, but you gain weight consistently, which I have been doing. And that's about it. So the next question we have here is, what's the best part of this pregnancy so far?
Yeah, there are quite a few, but if you're just asking for the best part, I think I must say that it's the bump itself.
Really?
Also known as Shona, as we lovingly call the bump.
Yeah.
It's the most obvious answer that's the best part of our pregnancy is the bump itself, and especially now, I think towards the end trimester, towards the final trimesters, when you can actually see the movements from inside the bump. It's tremendously exciting and a really joyful episode already, and it builds up the anticipation of actually seeing your baby. So it's absolutely, without an iota of doubt, I would say that it's the bump which is the best part of the pregnancy.
It's so miraculous, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, as we say that we call the bump the magic theater, that it's like you sprinkle some magic and things happen which you can't see unless you go to the doctor for your scans. But towards the end of the pregnancy, from the movements, I think I'm sure Tanushree would feel it, because she is the mother and she's constantly feeling the movements, which I can't. The only option that I have is to put my hand on top of the bump or just see it with my bare eyes.
Yeah.
So I think, exactly, so that's the best part of the pregnancy. But I mean, other than that, there's quite a long list anyways, but since the question is that what's the best part, you could have talked about intimacy, your love, your emotions, but all of those are very abstract feelings, and I think bump is the most tangible thing that at least I can see, and she can feel. She's carrying it herself. So no doubt it is the bump that's the best part of the pregnancy.
Okay, that's an interesting answer. I wasn't expecting that. So the next question is, how is Shahzad during pregnancy, or what kind of support you getting from him? Well, as he has already answered in the previous questions about the role he is going to play or he has been playing in this pregnancy. I mean, just not to make it sound very rosy, Shahzad is otherwise a very, very supportive life partner. And I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying, because he's sitting next to me. In fact, I have always said, you know, in a fun way, that Shahzad had been the best boyfriend one can ever be. He wasn't scoring so high in the role of a husband, but again, that's a joke. He has been very supportive when it comes to the role of a life partner, and of course, you know, between a couple, intimacy is always increased or felt probably more closely when you are pregnant, because you are creating a life together. His role has been very, very tremendous. I've always said that I feel I'm a very strong woman and I can do anything if I have money in my bank. I can travel to any places. I can get all the things done if I have money in my bank. But this journey of pregnancy wouldn't have been the same had Shahzad been not there, because, you know, even if there are times I know I can do this job, but if I know he's there, I feel more confident. Even if just him being around in the house, although we are probably in two different rooms and doing or getting our things done, or, you know, working or writing or reading, but as long as I know he's around, I feel, you know, there is huge emotional support. So he's been very helpful. Otherwise also, going back to the household work and all these things, it's not just because of the pregnancy. Even before pregnancy also, we have always divided our household chores. If I'm better at cooking, he would do all the cleaning, not only just dishwashing, you know, everything else. I, in my entire life, have never used a Hoover. There have been women in my salon or other places, they have said, you know, in pregnancy you shouldn't be using Hoover. I said, I never used. I don't know how to use a Hoover. It's always my husband who does it. So those are his departments. I have got my departments of doing things. So yeah, he's been very, very supportive, and he is probably the kind of life partner you need when you are pregnant. That's all I can say. So the next question is, did you make a nursery?
Well, again, the short answer is no. Primarily because of the fact that we know very well that newborn children, they don't require a lot of space anyways. So that's the key reason. But as they grow older, as they grow bigger, it is obviously a good idea and a highly recommended idea to have a dedicated nursery for themselves, with the cot and their own wardrobes and their own space, etc.
For their individuality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to start with, no, we won't have a dedicated nursery. We have a second room which was used as our small office, and we have rejigged that a bit to make space for a baby cot and some materials for the baby in that room itself.
Essentials for the baby, yeah.
However, we will make sure that in the first few months of the birth of the baby, it will sleep in the same room as we do. However, it doesn't mean that the baby will sleep on the same bed as we do, because we don't believe in co-sleeping, primarily because of the fact that it's simply not safe. It's not recommended to have the baby sleep with you on the same bed, where you would sleep. Many people prefer to have cribs and Moses baskets, so we have got a dedicated Moses basket for our baby, and we can obviously keep it just next to our bed, and the baby can sleep in that Moses basket in our bedroom in the first few months. But as I said, as time will progress, babies will grow just even before we realize, and that's what we're hoping as well. And once that happens, we'll have to look for a bigger space to make sure that we have a dedicated nursery where the child can grow.
Yeah, so we have been discussing actually moving out from where we are at the moment because we don't have an extra room to make a nursery for the baby. You know, I mean, if you have been following us for long and you've seen the kind of life's priority we had, we are travelers, we spent majority of our earning in traveling to different places. So we have actually never invested in big house or big cars or things like that, material things like that before. But now with the baby, I also believe that after a certain, especially after the first few months, the babies are little individuals. They're not just a little, life. They are little individuals, and they need to have their own space to grow their individuality. So I also like to give them a space where they can play, or they can think, or they can actually exercise their mind and brain. So we would create a nursery eventually, but the baby doesn't need it now, as soon as the baby is born. So maybe after 3 or 4 months, once we're in a better situation or we are settled down with the baby, we will move out from where we are at the moment, and we'll get a bigger place, and we'll have a dedicated room for the baby. And I have lots of creative ideas to make the nursery the way I want to, but for the time being, the baby has a beautiful bed and bedding set, and hopefully within the next 6 months the baby will have a beautiful room in which the baby can actually grow and able to think and be his or her own person. The next question we have here: how did you keep yourself informed about pregnancy, birth and labor?
Yeah, it's actually a very good question, and I would say that I really like that question the most. I would say so. The way we live in London, it's everybody is very busy, and we are just on our own. And as we have been saying, that we have distributed our own responsibilities in terms of the household duties that we have. When it came to getting to know more about pregnancy and childbirth, there had been a few sources, and guess what? Friends, families, no.
But we have a question on that, so let's
absolutely, we will address that later. But the primary source of our information was from the internet, of course, and from the internet, Tanushree came to know about some fantastic books, for example, which she made me read, and I was so enlightened, I was so well informed about pregnancy, the before, the during, and even after birth. So I think it's a highly recommended book for anybody who is not even pregnant. So books were one of the key sources from we got that information. Internet videos, of course, we kept on watching a lot of videos, and we tried to make sense of it depending on our own circumstances and our own discretion. The third source is Tanushree had been attending a yoga class every week. So there was a birth preparation class which spoke about breathing techniques and how you could use simple yoga positions, for example, and where even partners such as ourselves, we can help a pregnant mother before and during the pregnancy as well. So that was a very useful episode where I personally learned a lot. And then finally, we had attended a birth preparation class arranged by the NHS for expecting couples like ourselves. So we went to the St. Mary's Hospital at Paddington, and there were some 10, 15 other expecting couples, and it was a full day event on a Sunday arranged by a very articulate, very well informed, kind and friendly midwife who walked us through a lot of these aspects and questions that we had. So as I said, so we had been gathering all of this information from books, internet videos, and a lot of these 2 and 3 different classes, and now we can make a big picture of what to do now. We still know that there might be a lot of uncertainties, that we just don't know how to react, etc. But in all of that, we will address that in the last one of the questions that we have, that we did not just rely on a friend or a family member to give us the information and take it as gospel that okay, that person is a mother, she knows how everything works. Because remember, what I have learned as a man or as a would-be father, that every pregnancy is different, will be different. So what worked for somebody will not work for somebody else. So it means you have to go for that information just yourself. Even if you have to ask somebody, do that, but use your own discretion
and repurpose it, for your
Exactly.
own need. And of course there are plenty of information on internet and in the books as well, but you always have to rationalize it with your own circumstances,
Yeah.
which we did. And the funny interesting fact is, medical science and the research that goes behind it changes in every few years. So what was probably applicable in your mother's time or your mother-in-law's time or even your sister's time 10 years ago will not be probably applicable, and those informations may not be up to date now. So how is it that somebody who has got 5 kids 15 years ago or 20 years ago, their information is relevant for you, or their information is the gospel truth? So people will say different things, like your mother or your grandmother or your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, they will tell you different things, but try to repurpose it in your own circumstances, in your own pregnancy journey, because everybody's pregnancy journey is different, because every woman is different, their body is different. You might have a very complicated pregnancy and your mother has had a very probably smooth pregnancy. So your story and her story is not same. So try to repurpose it in your own circumstances, right? So that's the best learning. And of course, these classes had been so helpful. Like, I had no idea about pregnancy, labor, birth before I was pregnant, and that's because I had no interest to know about it. But now when I'm learning as I go along in this pregnancy, I find it so fascinating. And even my little, if you take one advice from this video or from the entire conversation of our pregnancy journey, that one little advice would be, even if you do not want to become a mother ever, or even if you do not want to get pregnant ever, knowing these things about your own body is so life-changing. It's good to be informed, to know how your body functions and what your body can do during this journey of pregnancy or motherhood. So it's really amazing, and that's my learning, from this pregnancy, that why wasn't I interested to know what kind of power my body has? Why didn't I want to know that what my body can do, given these circumstances? So yeah, that's my advice, that even if you don't want to become a mother, knowing all these nitty-gritty things that your body can do is so empowering. Okay, so the next question is, do you recommend any books on parenting, breastfeeding and sleep training? Yes, as I promised last time, we have some books on parenting as well, on breastfeeding and as well as sleep training. So the book that I want to recommend to you for breastfeeding is Breastfeeding Made Simple by Nancy Moore-Baker. I'm not sure whether I pronounced the last name correct. I don't have the book here at the moment, but the book is called Breastfeeding Made Simple. I'm gonna share the name and the writer or the link to buy in the info box down below. So keep a lookout for that. And there are a few books that I want to recommend on parenting. The first one that I'm going to recommend is this book called Bringing Up Baby. This is a very interesting book because there are books that you read for fun, there are books you read for information, and this is a book that you would be reading for fun and information. And why I'm saying that, because it's written by an American author called Pamela Druckerman, who was living in France when she wrote this. And it's about French parenting style. Now you might think that I am not French, I am not interested in French parenting style, and how can you generalize that one particular style of parenting is the right style of parenting? Well, you can always argue that, but read this book and you will know why I'm saying this. It's such an interesting read because this will actually make you realize that why it's so important to raise a child to be independent from the very beginning. So that's why I think this book is a very good book on parenting. And I have got two more recommendations. One is called The Journey to Parenthood by Diana Lynn Barnes. And the last one is Baby's First Year, The Net Mom's Guide to Being a New Mom. This book was recommended to me by the midwife at the NHS. And I've got one book on sleep training, which we haven't read yet, but we are planning to read this and try to implement what's written here. Do you want to share? This book was actually, this book was sent to us by the writer herself, and we follow each other on Instagram, Charmaine. So
this book is called the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sleeping Baby Routine, helping your baby sleep peacefully through the night without any tears. So sounds pretty promising. And it's by somebody called Charmian Mead, the baby sleep expert. So that's the book, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sleeping Baby Routine.
Now I have lots of expectations from this book, because this is a tall claim, and I have heard from many mothers who have managed successfully to sleep train their baby after 3 months. It is possible, because I've heard from many people that they have sleep trained their baby. And this book, the book on the parenting that I mentioned earlier, this book also says that our claims that most of the French parents, they claim that their child sleeps throughout the night for 7 hours in the first few months after the baby is born. So, which is amazing. And let's see what we learn. And we actually plan to do a full review of that book once we finish reading.
Yeah.
We just received it last week, and I have got lots of other backlogs to finish. And then we will start reading this book, and we'll get back to you what we have learned and how we could implement in our baby once the baby is here. So these are the books that we wanted to recommend. We are nearly there, so I know this video is going to be very long. So what is your opinion on roles of friends and family during pregnancy?
I think they do have an important role to play. Of course, friends and family is a part and parcel of our lives. But I think the emotional support, just knowing that they're there with their best wishes, is the best thing that they can offer. And I think that's what we have experienced as well. What I would say that we would not want from our friends and families is just free advice.
Unsolicited advice.
Unsolicited advice based just on their experience. I'm sure it must be very natural for them to offer that, because that's what they are exposed to, that's what they have experienced themselves. But honestly, just don't rely on your friends and families for advice and information only. Go and find the information out for yourself from various sources, and then make up your mind. But as long as you're just getting the support, the emotional support, or the presence from a loved one, or a family member, or a friend, that's fantastic. So we're not saying that you should avoid all contact with your friends and families during this fantastic episode of your life, but be very careful what you're expecting from them. If it's love and support, emotion, absolutely fantastic. But if it's crucial information and advice on what you should eat, how you should behave during a pregnancy, how you should act during a pregnancy,
what you should wear or not wear.
Yes, I think just take it with a bit of a caveat there, and best not to pay heed to that advice from friends and families, because they might be doing it unknowingly. So that's what I would just say.
Yeah, okay. And the next question is, are you ready for the post-pregnancy ordeal, sleep deprivation and all that?
Well, nobody is ready fully. What we would say is that as long as you're aware that this is something that everybody has to go through, and this will be a normal at some point, we'll just have to take the plunge. So we only know now in our mind that there would be these sleepless nights and a lot of unknowns and uncertainties and panic at times maybe as well. But you know what? I mean, you cannot just script everything. So we'll just have to go with the flow there, and let's see what happens. But yes, we are trying to convince ourselves that there would be some hiccups in the process in our routines, and we are really trying to enjoy some of our own times together, or on our own, or the uninterrupted long sleeps that we are still enjoying in this final phase of the pregnancy.
Yeah, I think the more sacrifice needs to be done from Shahzad's side, because I'm already not sleeping so well. Maybe, this is kind of a way of my body, getting prepared for it. Shahzad is managing to sleep at night still well, and I think, you know, when I just wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and keep sitting there looking at Shahzad sleeping, and I just feel, okay, just let him sleep. He might not be able to sleep once the baby is here, because as I said, the baby will be sleeping in our room for the first 3 months, and when I'll be waking up feeding the baby in the middle of the night, the lights will be on and he will be awake automatically. And you know, it just comes with that package, right? So you have slept for 37 years of your life very peacefully, and now is the time for you to just you know, compromise on some, to see that smiley face of your baby and play with them. So it comes with that package, and all you have to do is just be mentally prepared for it and take it as it comes. So that's it. The last question we have here is, what kind of food is good for baby and baby's brain development during pregnancy? Thank you for asking this question, because it's a very important question to address, because the food you eat is more likely to affect how your baby's cognitive development will take place. So it's very important for you to be properly nutritioned during pregnancy. So vitamin D, iron supplements, and you know, folic acid, these are the things that your midwives or doctors will advise you to take from the very beginning of your pregnancy, because they are very important, especially in the first trimester. And lack of them will result in many deficiency and many diseases in your baby's body. So you have to make sure you are taking all of those things. And if I have to mention about the types of food that you should eat, I can only speak for myself, what I have been eating consistently from the very beginning of the pregnancy. In fact, these are the food that I would eat normally in any ways, before my pregnancy as well. I make sure that I eat at least 1 egg every single day. I also eat a lot of fish. Of course, there are certain fish that you're not supposed to have it during pregnancy, the fish with high mercury. So avoid them, just Google them. There are 6 to 7 types of fish that you shouldn't be having when you are pregnant. Interesting thing is, those fish I've never eaten even before pregnancy or otherwise in life. So I don't have to think about that or worry about that. But the fish that you should definitely eat, the fatty fish, for example, salmon is extremely good, and it's very good for baby's brain development as well. Other than that, of course, there is no alternative for green leafy vegetables. I make sure that I have lots of green leafy vegetables, like at least, if not every day, at least 3 to 4 times a week. So that's very important. Having fruits during your pregnancy is highly recommended as well. I have a banana or a guava. I mean, of course, I have been having a guava every single day. I also have a banana. I have berries sometimes in the breakfast. Of course, certain types of fruits you are not supposed to eat. For example, you shouldn't be eating papaya, because they say that it escalates you to go into early labor, or it results in premature birth of your baby. So I have avoided papaya completely throughout the pregnancy. And even like in the first trimester, when we were in summer, I had even Indian mangoes which were available here. I also eat chicken, of course, but I don't eat chicken that often. And lentils and legumes, any kind of lentils and legumes, you should incorporate that in your daily diet. I mean, we eat some sort of dal every single day, even otherwise, even before pregnancy, right? So lentils, legumes, any sort of things, whether it's like kidney beans or just simple the pink lentils that you have, make a soup out of it, because we do a lot of Indian cooking at home as well. So the dal comes as a part of it. But if you are not cooking Indian food, just make soup, lentil soup. Yogurt helps for baby's brain development. And milk, of course. I mean, you have to drink milk because it provides you calcium. And otherwise also, like if you're not used to drinking cow milk, I personally don't drink cow milk. I drink almond milk. So make sure you drink some sort of milk. So it's also very important. And another thing that I have been having from the day 1 of this pregnancy is almonds. Almonds, nuts are very good for baby brain development. Nuts are also good for your own brain development. So I was having nuts, even like almonds, especially 4 to 5 almonds every morning. Even Shahzad has it. We normally, it's like a part of our diet. So these are the common things, and I'm sure if you Google or if you talk to your midwife or doctor, they'll also tell you a list of food that you should be eating that's good for baby's cognitive development. So these are the things that I have been eating regularly, and I can recommend it. And of course, other than that, you should definitely go for those supplements like iron supplements, vitamin D, or especially if you're living in a country where you don't have much sunshine during winter months in any ways like we do. So it's very important to have vitamin D supplements. And of course, folic acid is very important. I mean, there are people who take folic acids when they are trying to get pregnant. So you can imagine how important it is. So that's why, I mean, if you can, you definitely eat green leafy vegetables, which is basically folate. At the same time, you should also have folic acid as a supplement. So that's the best advice I can give you from my own experience of this pregnancy. We are at the end of this questionnaire. And thank you once again for listening to us. This video is going to be very long. Also, you just have to bear in mind that this is the last video of our pregnancy update. When we will talk next, probably that would be after the baby is here, and that would be probably our birth or labor story if we want to feel comfortable about it. We will see. But for the time being, as a pregnant couple or as an expectant parent, this is going to be our last video. So maybe this is why it's a bit longer. But thank you very much for being so patient, for listening to us, for sending those questions, which also helped us to know us, our journey, better through those questions and through answering those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as they say that once you share, it grows. So once we have shared our experiences and our decisions and our emotions with you, I think we also felt much better. So thank you very much for that. And we just need all your wishes, good lucks and comments, of course, below as well, as we get into the final and the most exciting chapter of this pregnancy journey so far. So hopefully we will see you again in another video on the other side of this wonderful experience, and we hope to share more with you in the coming days. So until then, thank you very much, stay well and stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.